All right, joined now by Paul Garcia. He does great work for covering the San Antonio Spurs for us here at the Alley Oop. Paul, thank you so much for hopping on. Really appreciate it. Just work that you're doing on Project Spurs and the Spot Up Shot has been awesome. And he hosts the Spurs cast, so make sure to go check that out. Paul, like I said, thank you so much. The highs have been really high with Victor Wembanyama. It has been very fun to see this team, to track this team. Lows have not been as fun, obviously. Just I'm not. I don't even really want to focus on the lows as much. The team's been blown out a couple points by 40 points, but it is what it is. Tell me everything about Victor Wembanyama.
Man, he's just, it's just the word wow is all I continue to say. I mean, just the things that he does, whether you're watching it in real time or if you just go back and kind of just dive into the film, there's just things you don't even notice that he did. Like there was just coming to an example, one of these 20-point blowouts where he and Zach Collins, where Zach's kind of up at the top of the 3-point arc, Wemby passes to him and they almost like a give and go, like what Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum used to do with the Blazers. These are two 7-footers doing this, and Wemby just pulls up and takes a three like a shooting guard. I mean, like it's just crazy, and like even his blocks, like he's changing the format of how he's blocking shots in games. So he went from like against Scotty Barnes in a game where like he stands like one of those things like at the car parking lot where like they just like float. He has both hands, both feet are planted. Barnes tries to like go up and under against him, and he doesn't even jump and just swats the ball down. Then another game, he almost has a similar situation where he gets a block, but instead of swatting it down, he actually corrals it from the player. And then in another game, he goes up and he gets his first pin block to the backboard. So I mean, again, just the variety of ways that he impacts the game is just incredible in these first few games that we've seen from him in 8 games. And then of course, like I said, we've seen his jump shot struggle, especially lately in these last few games against the Knicks and the Pacers. But then when he has his jump shot going, I mean, it looks unstoppable. And especially that his percentages actually increase in crunch time is very something to watch. Is the fact that he actually so far early on he's becoming a better player in those most important moments of a game.
And we've seen that a couple times, especially in a couple of the wins. That has been really cool. The Suns Spurs games were so important, I think, for Wemby, but also for Spurs and Spurs fans, and for NBA fans in general. I'll say, how important do you think that Suns doubleheader was, just to kind of experience, and whether it's the Spurs experiencing or Spurs fans experiencing it?
I think it was really important. Both games. For one, the first one because they came back from a 20, I think it was a 22-point deficit or a 20-point deficit. So that right there teaches this team that yes, yeah, of course, they got to start off better, but they at least have the capability to make that type of a comeback. And then the second one was really good for them because they saw the Suns almost giving a better shot where they got Devin Booker back in that game. So Vegas thought like it was like going to be like a 10-point game or something like that. And no, these guys actually showed up. They really performed. And then even when the Suns made a comeback, they still executed and were able to hold on to that win. So I think that was a really good 2 games for them. Unfortunately, though, they haven't won a game since those 2 Suns games. They're actually now 0-3 in their first 3-game losing streak. So it will be interesting to see how they handle that. But I think that's just a quick lesson in the type of team they can be when they do put forth some of their best effort.
Oh, there's no doubt, and there's also no doubt who the best player was in that second Suns game. Like it was Wembanyama. It was the rookie first overall pick phenom. Like, and to do that in Phoenix against Kevin Durant and against Devin Booker and all those guys and on that stage and with that pressure, I think that was just a really important moment for a lot of people, and it was kind of a watershed moment for anybody that had doubts. Where not a lot of people had doubts at that point, but there are still some obvious skeptics. I think it's just so clear as day, that Wemby's going to be this supernatural talent, and he is a pterodactyl and can shoot like a shooting guard. Like it's incredible to watch. So been very fun, although something that has not been necessarily incredibly fun. This Jeremy Sochan starting lineup versus kind of the Trey Jones mix in. Looking at some of the numbers behind that, I mean, it's clear that what works. It's the Trey Jones minutes that work,
Oh yeah.
and it's clear what doesn't work. And I kind of get taken back to when Nikola Jokic and Yusuf Nurkic were starting for the Nuggets at the same time, where you have 2 centers that they're trying to make work, they're trying to fit it in, they're trying something different, unique in a modern NBA where there's just a lot of spacing, and maybe that would work now. Maybe something like that would be a little bit different if you tried it in 2023. But at that point, it didn't work. I'm curious your perspective on the Jeremy Sochan starting lineup and him starting a point guard versus where we thought it would be Trey Jones at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Like you said, the numbers don't lie. I mean, it's pretty rough. Like, it's a huge gap between, I think they were from before the Knicks game, they were like a minus 26, according to Cleaning the Glass, and then the Jones one was like a plus like 20 something or plus 17 something. Anyway, it's a stark difference. You just see too that a lot of those, like a lot of the Wembanyama play we're talking about from those Phoenix games, there was a lot more minutes there with Trey Jones on the floor with him, and it's almost like an unfair role for Sochan because he wasn't, it's not like he wanted this role, but they want to get the max talent out there on the floor that they can. They want to have Vassell, Keldon, Sochan, and Wembanyama, the four of those players, out on the floor as much as possible. So that's probably the only way they could pull this off. And so, there's going to be some growing pains. I don't know if it's ever going to, click for them this year, but I think, the hope is that there is some sort of positive sign here where Sochan, it gets more, comfortable running the offense, being able to attack, get into the paint, and be a player who's drawing some of the defense where he can also have a good rhythm of setting up Wembanyama and the other players on the team. Right now, that's not happening. I remember just before the Knicks game, looking up his pick and roll ball handler numbers, and he was like 0.73. It was like really rough. He was last on the team in terms of players that have registered data in that category, and that's your starting point guard right now. So again, it's been a rough ride for them right now early on. He had a pretty good game against the Knicks recently, but again, it was a blowout. It was like a 20-point game. And then one thing, what was one more thing? Oh, just defensively, that's one good thing about this lineup, unfortunately, is that their defensive possibilities are there, like where you see him as a 6'10" player guarding some of the point guards, guarding wings. Pop's able to like put him on Kawhi one game, put him on Devin Booker another game, put him on Luka Doncic. So that's the good thing, is that defensively, he's really able to showcase a little bit more of his skill set there. And they have been experimenting more so with this 3-2 zone, where they have Sochan kind of being that player who can be a little bit more free and trying to create havoc on the defensive end up top. And that's one thing they did against to the Suns in that game where they won, where Wemby had 38 points. But again, it is, it's a rough going right now. My question too still is just, how long are they going to continue to go with this? I don't, again, 8 games isn't enough. They're going to continue to try this. But my question is, like, is it 15 games? Is it 20 games? Is it like after going into January, have they seen enough? Like, if the numbers continue to show these two different portraits, how much further do you want to continue to just experiment with this? So, it looks right now like it's going to be a rough, type of situation for them trying to figure this out.
It is fascinating, though, and I can understand, especially for a developmental team, that you want to try stuff. You want to put these guys into positions where they can grow, not necessarily succeed all the time, but you want them to grow. You want them to improve. And I can see down the line when somebody like Wemby is in his prime, when some of these guys are in their primes, that you can make some crunch spacing look a little bit better if everybody's just more talented and more experienced and playing together, and you figure out some things at that point. But it is going to take some time for that, and I know that Spurs fans are probably getting a little impatient because they see how great Wemby is, and they just want to surround him as best as they can, and I understand that, but it is okay to take time this year.
Yeah, I just would say one last thing is that, like, there's going to be a point, though, like a lot of these slow starts are because that lineup just can't get anything going offensively. It's more so, like I said, defensively they're kind of okay. It's that offense, and like they just struggle out the gates, and teams get these big runs in them. Like I think the Knicks were up 13-0 to begin the game, and so that's a question of, like, you're digging yourself into holes, and you really can't play competitive basketball once you fall behind by 15, 20 points. And so I think if we continue to see a trend where they're just getting outscored by a lot early on, I think that they may have to like scrap that lineup kind of early, even though they want to try to give it as much time as possible, even though, like you said, like a growing young team right now.
It is possible too, though. Maybe it doesn't have to be your starting lineup. It could just be something you go to throughout the game if the situation dictates it. That is also perfectly reasonable, and there should be enough time across an 82 game season that they can go to it semi-regularly. So I do firmly agree with that, but they should probably get Trey Jones back in there at some point, and it'll make more sense, and they will be just fine for it. So who are some other guys, maybe outside of Wemby and Sochan and Trey Jones, that you think these fans should pay attention to for the strong starts that they've had?
I think one of the players off the bench is Jetty Osman, a player who they mainly acquired via trade to get, I think it was a second-round pick for him, but they immediately, right in preseason, they put him into the lineup. Pop really likes him as a player. He's a veteran player. He knows how to play basketball. Just fits any role you want him to, as a 3, as a 4, and we see he's that player who's gotten a lot of minutes early on. And yesterday was finally like his first quiet game, but I mean, just off the bench, he's averaging almost like 8.5, 9 points. A really good 3-point shooter right now, and like I said, he doesn't make any mistakes. he's able to switch defensively a little bit there for you. He's usually the player who spells Wemby whenever he needs to take a break, and so Pop just likes putting him in different lineups. We've seen him in crunch time. The team's already trusting him there. So I think Jetty's been the surprise player who's just really clicked with the San Antonio team and found a really good home right now, even though he's only under contract for this past season. And then also Devin Vassell, of course, but he's been hurt for 2 games here, or 2 or 3 games. But of course, when he's been out on the floor and he's healthy, I mean, it looks like already he's gone up to that extra level that the Spurs wanted to see. Just a lights out shooter, being a player who's getting more so to the free throw line, especially in crunch time. That was one thing to watch for him, was can he be that player they go to? And he showed he can be early on. And then even defensively, he's looking a little bit better there. So I think Devin and Jetty have been really standout players for San Antonio aside from Wemby.
I don't know if Devin's ultimately going to be the number 2 on this team. I don't know if that's what his future is going to look like. To me, it probably profiles that he's more of a number 3 or number 4 kind of guy that fits into whatever the ethos is. But I mean, he's still talented enough that you can ask those questions. So that's an important step for him, and hopefully he continues to build upon that. That's a very exciting aspect of it. And Cedi Osman, just a standard guy that should be able to fit into a lot of different systems. And sometimes you just need veterans in. And I'm sure that the Spurs, there have been many young groups over the course of these last couple of years. So it's probably nice to have a guy like Cedi Osman who just makes a lot of sense there. So should be good. Should be exciting to see. Before I let you go here, best player, best team that the Spurs you think have seen so far?
So I'm looking at their schedule right now, and it's just so weird because, like I said, there's a lot of blowouts going on there. Like, I would say the Clippers look really good against them, but now the Clippers are a whole different team. This was before they had Harden. So right now, I would say the Pacers look really nice against San Antonio. They were the ones who won by 41. They had the biggest lead, and then even before you and I started recording, they were beating the Bucks by they were about by 15 a while ago when I watched them. And I just like what I've seen from Indiana. I like what I've seen from Tyrese Halliburton. How he's just a player who can just get into the paint at will and then kick out, and they just move the ball around to different shooters. They have a bunch of shooters all over the floor. I just like what that team has out there. Even a player like Aaron Nesmith, who actually did a pretty good job guarding Wemby in that game against the Spurs. He's kind of I know he struggled in Boston early on in his career, and now it looks like he's found a good home in Indiana. So again, they're not going to be a contender or anything like that, but I think that they're going to be a good competitive team out east. And I've been really surprised by the Pacers from what I've seen with the Spurs play them, and also what they've been doing some other teams as well.
Sure, man. First in offense, Tyrese Halliburton averaging 23 and 12 assists. So he's been awesome for them, and kind of a sneaky MVP candidate. Probably isn't actually going to reach that, but sort of like one of those hat tip guys that you credit on the fifth spot on your ballot. So hopefully he can continue that. But hey, Paul, it's been great talking to you. It's been great chatting. Thank you so much for hopping on. He's Paul Garcia of Project Spurs and host of the Spurs Cast. So thank you so much for hopping on, and I'm excited to chat again in 6 weeks.
All right, man. Sounds good. All right, so hopefully the Spurs are in more competitive games when we talk next time.